My name is Isabel, and my husband, Andres, and I have been married for 5 years. Our relationship is characterized by a special complicity, a shared passion for adventure that drives us to explore the world and discover new horizons. Often, this adventure takes simple forms, such as impromptu getaways or candlelit dinners at home, revisiting the stories of our life together. This love and stability always seemed unshakable to me. Yet, inside me, I sometimes felt that something was missing, something I couldn't name. There was a spark of adrenaline, a slight need to break the routine, to try something unknown, an idea I never dared to express. But that night, Andres, with an almost mysterious tone, launched a proposal that left me stunned. "Let's try something completely different for Halloween." I laughed, trying to hide my surprise. "Different? Something like a costume party?" He smiled, looking at me with intensity. "No, something really bold with someone else." His words took my breath away, like an unexpected twist in a movie. Before continuing the story, I ask you for a second to give a like to the video. It doesn't bother you at all, and it helps me a lot. Let's continue. I never imagined that my Andres, so considerate and reserved, could suggest something like that. It was not the time to give him an answer, and instead, I averted my gaze, feeling both puzzled and curious, letting silence settle between us. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Andres had planted a seed in my mind, and little by little this idea was growing. I didn't know if I was ready to explore such a possibility, or even if I really wanted it. But this idea kept coming back, like a sweet poison that had taken up residence in my thoughts. The following week, as we shared a quiet dinner at home, Andrew slipped his hand over mine. His gaze shone with an intensity I had not seen him have before. A silent desire, as if he expected something from me. "Have you thought about what we talked about, Isabel?" I looked at him, searching for the words. "No, I don't know." It's something I didn't expect. I had never imagined something like this between us. He smiled softly, stroking my hand. "I understand. It's just an idea. But I want you to feel comfortable. If you don't want to, no problem." I felt a mixture of relief and frustration at his words. It was reassuring to know that he wasn't pressuring me, but, deep down, the idea intrigued me. And the very idea of giving it up seemed almost disappointing. Andrew had never looked at me that way, with that intensity, that curiosity to discover something new together. I felt we were on the verge of something, and yet I couldn't take the plunge. It was then that he mentioned Mario, a friend of many years, someone we both knew well and trusted. Andres thought that, if there was anyone we could consider such a thing with, it would be him. Mario was charismatic, intelligent, with a calm and reliable presence. The idea of him being involved made this proposal even more intriguing, but also more real. Days passed, and although I had not given Andres an answer, I felt that this proposal was floating between us like a secret. He did not mention anything directly, but his glances, his complicit smiles, and the way he held my hand made it evident that he had not forgotten. Mario didn't seem oblivious to the tension that was growing in the air either. Every time the three of us met, I noticed something different in the way he behaved. A prolonged glance, a more open smile, as if he too was waiting for a sign. Something to confirm that we were playing the same silent game. Over time, the idea of a triangle between the three of us ceased to seem shocking or unfamiliar, yet I still feared a part of me, a part that wasn't ready to cross that line. What would this experience really mean for our relationship? Would it bring us closer together, or, instead, push us apart? One night, after Mario left, Andres hugged me and whispered in my ear, "It doesn't matter what you decide. I want you to know that I love you and that I will be here for you." His words, so simple and sincere, dispelled my doubts. I knew that whatever path we chose, our love would remain intact. The days continued, and although I had not given Andres an answer, the proposal remained a shadow, a secret shared between us that neither of us dared to break. Andres avoided talking about it directly, but his glances, his discreet caresses, and the way he held my hand revealed that the idea was still there. waiting, floating in the air. And Mario seemed to sense it too. Every time we met, I caught his steady gaze, his restrained smile, as if he too was caught in this strange web of desire and uncertainty we had woven between the three of us. Over time, the idea of a triangle ceased to seem forbidden to me. A curiosity had grown in me that was as strange as it was inevitable, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation that I couldn't ignore. But part of me still had doubts. What would happen if we crossed that line? Would it bring us closer together, or would it break the stability we had built? One night, after dinner at home, Andres and I sat on the couch, the dim light of the living room enveloping us in an intimate atmosphere. He looked at me, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sweetness and desire. His hand slid down my arm until it reached my hand, and in a soft tone he asked, "What's holding you back, Isabel?" The question took me by surprise. I had avoided delving into my own feelings, but there she was, looking at me, wanting to understand my resistance. "I don't know. I'm afraid that this might change something between us, that it might affect us in a way we can't control," I answered in a whisper, fixing my eyes on our intertwined hands. Andrew nodded, his expression as understanding as ever. "Whatever we decide, nothing will change how I feel about you. This is just an experience. Our love is what really matters." His words reassured me, but the restlessness continued to linger. Although I felt deeply secure with him, I was aware that desire could be a tricky terrain, one I didn't want to explore without being completely sure. The next day, we resumed our routine. However, this conversation had left a palpable tension in the air, an electricity that seemed to envelop us. The idea of crossing that border with Mario was still there, like a latent temptation that made every encounter with him an experience full of glances, of silent complicity, and a restrained attraction. One Saturday night, Andre suggested that we invite Mario to spend an evening at home. I knew that, although he didn't push, this kind of invitation was a way to explore the limit of our own resistance. I felt caught between desire and doubt, but I went along with the idea. Maybe, I thought, this encounter would help me understand if I was really ready to take that step. Mario arrived that night, with a bottle of wine and a discreet smile, as if he sensed the weight of that invitation. We shared a quiet dinner, full of laughter and memories. However, beneath that appearance of normality, every glance, every touch was charged with meaning. The atmosphere was light, but I felt a kind of undercurrent, a tension that made every movement seem more intimate, closer. After dinner, we settled into the lounge with our glasses of wine. The conversation flowed naturally, but my thoughts went beyond words. I was caught in a dilemma, the security of the known and the attraction of the forbidden, the trust in Andres and the temptation of something new with Mario. Each of his gestures made me doubt more, while I felt the constant presence of Andres by my side, his silent support. At one point in the evening, Mario and I found ourselves sitting very close. At one point, while explaining a story to me, he leaned toward me, and our faces were just inches apart. I held my breath. It was an eternal instant, an exchange of glances that said much more than any word. Andres, from the other side, watched the scene in silence, with a calm expression, as if he had been waiting for this moment. In the end, however, I pulled back, breaking the spell. I felt my heart beating fast, caught between two worlds. I knew the boundary was there, waiting, and that only one step separated us from crossing it. Mario and I shared a shy smile, while Andres kept looking at us with that infinite patience, giving me the space I needed to process everything I was feeling. When Mario finally said his goodbyes, Andres wrapped his arms around me, his embrace warm and secure. "There's no hurry, Isabel," he murmured in my ear. "When you're ready, I'll know." His words were the balm I needed, relieving the pressure I had been feeling for weeks. I knew that this game of stares and detention couldn't last forever, but I also understood that there was no right or wrong decision. The important thing was that Andrew and I were facing this journey together, unhurried and unafraid. That night, as he fell asleep next to me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling in the dimness of the room. The tension between us was still there, but now I felt a calm, a clarity I hadn't had before. The days following that evening were a mixture of calm and anticipation. Andres did not talk about it again, but his gestures, his caresses, and his looks kept transmitting the same message of patience and support. I knew he was willing to wait for me, to give me the time I needed to feel completely safe. But at the same time, I could sense that this tension was not going to go away. It had become something that we both felt was a space in our relationship that we could only go through together. Every time we would meet Mario, I would notice how our gazes would pause for a second longer than normal, how our bodies seemed to move in a kind of silent dance, measuring the distance between us. He didn't mention anything, but the tension was there, suspended in every smile, in every pause. It was as if the three of us were exploring the limits of what we knew, gently pushing at the edges of an intimacy that until now had been simple and reliable, but now carried a new, unexpected weight. One Saturday afternoon, Andres proposed a getaway to the beach. We liked to go to the same place, a small hidden cove we had discovered together years ago. It was a special place for us, a haven of peace and shared memories. When we arrived, we settled down on the sand, enjoying the sound of the waves and the quiet of the afternoon. As we gazed at the horizon, Andres took my hand and remained silent, as if he was waiting for the right moment to say something important. After a while, he broke the silence. "You know, Isabel, you don't have to do this for me." "Whatever you decide, I'll be by your side." Her voice was low, full of a sincerity that touched me deeply. His words, so simple and honest, made me understand that there were no expectations. He was willing to accept my decision, whatever it was, because what really mattered to him was our love, our trust. I took a deep breath, feeling more relieved. I was grateful for the space Andrew was giving me, for the safety he was giving me to explore my own feelings without fear. However, that freedom had also awakened something in me, a curiosity I could not ignore. I began to realize that what was holding me back was not really the fear of change. It was the uncertainty of how to face this new reality. During the days that followed, our meetings with Mario became more frequent. He and Andre would organize meetings at home, informal gatherings where conversation and laughter flowed naturally. I felt that every time the three of us were together, the atmosphere was charged with that new complicity, that closeness that needed no words. And even though nothing was happening, the simple fact of being together made that tension increase, becoming more and more tangible, almost physical. One night, after one of these dinners, Andres and Mario stayed talking in the living room while I was cleaning up in the kitchen. I could hear their voices in the background, their laughter, and I realized how much the dynamic between us had changed. It was as if that connection between the three of us had deepened, as if we were no longer just a couple and a friend, but something more. When I finished, I returned to the living room, and they both looked at me with this new familiarity, a mixture of affection and restrained desire. We sat in silence, the three of us together, staring into the dim light of the room, not needing to say anything. Andres leaned toward me, put his arm around my shoulders and kissed me on the cheek, a gesture that on any other occasion would have been casual. But now it seemed to have a deeper meaning. Mario looked at us with a quiet smile, as if he also understood the importance of that moment, of that shared waiting. At the end of the night, when Mario said goodbye, he hugged me with a softness and warmth that made me understand that he also felt that special connection between us. It was a longer embrace than usual, a gesture charged with affection and understanding, which gave a glimpse of that latent tension. When the door closed behind him, I turned to Andres, and without saying a word, I took refuge in his arms. I felt that, although I had not made any decision, the simple fact of sharing this process was strengthening us. That night, as I reconstituted myself at his side, I understood that this situation, this waiting, was actually an exploration of my own limits, my desires, and my trust in Andres. I didn't know when I would be ready to take the next step, or even if I ever would be. But at that moment, I knew that whatever decision we made, it would be a choice made out of the love and complicity we had built together. The moment finally came during a warm summer night, a night when everything seemed to line up. Andres had invited Mario to dinner at home, and from the moment he walked in, the tension that had grown between us became almost palpable. Dinner passed with a pleasant familiarity, but beneath the shared smiles and laughter, there was something deeper, something we all felt that none of us mentioned. This time the silence seemed to carry a greater meaning. The atmosphere was different, almost expectant. After dinner, we moved to the living room, where Andres had arranged some candles that illuminated the space with a soft and cozy light. The three of us settled on the couch with our glasses of wine, as the conversation drifted into increasingly intimate topics. As we talked, the boundaries between friendship and desire seemed to blur, and every glance, every gesture, carried a new weight, an intensity we had not felt before. Andres looked at me then, as if searching my eyes for confirmation. His gaze reflected a mixture of affection and understanding, as if he knew that this was the moment, and that no matter what happened, he would be there, supporting me. I nodded slightly, and knew that in that simple gesture, without words, I was giving him the approval I had been waiting for weeks. Mario, who was watching us silently, approached me with a gentleness that surprised me. His hands rested on my cheeks, and I felt his breath close, a mixture of familiarity and anticipation that quickened my pulse. When our gazes finally met, he kissed me, a delicate kiss, but full of desire. I closed my eyes, letting myself be carried away by that mixture of emotions, while Andres, still by my side, held my hand, giving me the support and confidence that only he knew how to give me. I felt the warmth of both of them around me, their bodies approaching each other with a naturalness that made me understand that this moment was something we had built together, step by step, with trust and respect. Kisses and caresses flowed between us in a perfect balance, in a synchrony that could only be achieved when love and friendship united in a single moment. Andre surrounded me from behind, his lips brushing my neck, while Mario explored every corner of my being with delicacy, as if he wanted to savor every moment. I was between the two of them, enveloped in a mixture of sensations that were new to me, but also deeply satisfying. It was as if each complemented the other, achieving a balance that made every sensation, every whisper, part of a unique experience. The intensity of the night gradually increased, and time seemed to stand still as we lost ourselves in this dance of caresses, in the space we had created together. Every gesture, every shared whisper, was a reflection of the trust and respect that united us. Andres and Mario made me feel complete, desired, and deeply safe, in an environment where surrender was mutual, without fear or reservation. Finally, when the climax came, I felt as if time and space had vanished. We were connected in a way that was beyond words, beyond any experience I had ever had before. When it was over, we stood in silence, embracing, the three of us entwined in a moment of peace and contentment. There was no need for words. We knew we had shared something extraordinary, something that would mark us forever. That night, as we drifted off to sleep, I realized that that experience had not only deepened our relationship, but had strengthened the love and trust between us. The days following that night were marked by a deep calm, a sense of fulfillment I had not experienced before. Crossing that threshold together had been more than just an experience. It was an act of love, trust, and surrender that had enriched our relationship in a way I never imagined possible. My fears had vanished, and in their place had come a renewed understanding of what it meant to share my life with Andres. Andres and I resumed our routine, but our complicity was now stronger, more solid. We had experienced something unique, and that experience had brought us together on a different level. It was not something we talked about every day, but it was felt in every look, in every gesture, in the serenity with which we communicated. It was a shared secret, a chapter in our history that enriched our connection without the need to return to it. Mario, for his part, continued to be an important presence in our lives, but now there was a tranquility in our relationship. The intensity of that night had left a special bond between the three of us, a kind of respect and affection that required no explanation. We knew that this experience was something unique, an instant suspended in time that did not need to be repeated to retain its value. One afternoon, while Andres and I were together, He looked at me with that tenderness I had always loved in him, and whispered to me, "I am happy to have lived it with you, Isabel. I don't know if it was something I ever imagined, but with you, it was the right thing to do." His words reflected exactly what I felt. It wasn't just the experience itself, but the fact that I had shared it with him, that I trusted our relationship enough to explore new territory together. As I lay in his arms that night, I understood that this was not just a fling. What was important was that, together, we had discovered a way to express our love and trust, a way to open up to each other, without fear or reservation. The experience was over, but the imprint it left on us remained as a confirmation of the strength of our bond. From that moment on, we moved forward, with a love that had matured and grown. We had shared something intimate and profound that did not need to be repeated to retain its meaning. The experience had given us a new perspective on ourselves and our relationship, and now, more secure and united, we were ready to face the future, knowing that our love was capable of withstanding any test, because it was grounded in trust and truth. That night remained a beautiful and precious memory, a special chapter that would stay with us forever, enriching our story every day, and reminding us that true love is capable of expanding its limits, as long as both hearts are aligned. The story is over, but if you want to hear other stories of secrets and lies, click on one of the videos you see on the screen, and remember to subscribe to the channel to receive new stories every day.